Greetings, I am Tom Earl. As you know, this is my year of courage. I know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here sharing your greatest gifts, your time, and your energy means the world to me. I hope you know that in this space, you are loved just as you are. We are almost already through the month of December. Holy smokes! Hopefully coming up here, you're going to get a few days off to breathe and relax. But maybe these coming days, you're going to be with some folks where you're going to need some courage. And so as you know, this whole year, I've been exploring, what does it mean to be courageous? What is courage? My biggest questions are things like, what does everyday courage look like in people's lives? And I've been asking a lot, why do we even need the word courage? People will say to me, I'll say, what is courage? And they'll say bravery, or they'll say authenticity. And I'll say, well, then why do we actually need the word courage if we're saying courage is authenticity? And so what I really wanted to do this year is to bring not only to myself, but to you, everyday conversations with real people of what does courage look like in our life. Now, as you can tell, if you're following the calendar year, we are drawing to a close not only on 2018, but also on this year of courage. And so this is really going to be, this episode and the one after, are going to be the culminating experience of my conversations in courage. And then moving forward, courage will be incorporated, but we won't be having explicit conversations around courage anymore. Stay tuned for what 2019 will be my year of. So what I did over the course of 2018 is when we had people over for dinner at our house, sometimes even a dinner party, I would say, hey, I got a recording studio and I'm asking people what is courage. Could I ask you? And so throughout the year, I would pull people into my studio and I'd ask them a set of questions I had prepared around courage. You might recall that I did this last year around beliefs, where I asked my friends, what do you believe? You can check out that one, tomearl.com/beliefs. And so what you're going to hear in a second is just that, where I pull my friends aside and we go through the same set of questions and I ask them, what is courage? And you're going to get to hear their responses. Now, as much as I tried to stay to the script, as you know, I like to veer off and go where the person is wanting the conversation to journey. And so sometimes I asked people questions that I didn't ask other people. Sometimes I didn't ask someone a question, I asked the other one. And so you might hear times where during a set of questions, a person doesn't respond, but we hear their voice come later on when I ask them a unique question. The format's going to be, in a second, I'll get out of the way, and you'll be introduced to the people who I interviewed. It's going to start with them sharing their name and what their name means to them. After that, you'll hear me ask a question. Now, what I do is instead of repeating the question every time somebody speaks, you're going to hear all 5 to 7 people respond to that question one after the other. And then when you hear me ask a question again, that'll signal to you they are now answering a new question. Now, when every single person answered the question, I keep them in the same order as when they introduce themselves, so that if you're listening to the podcast and not watching the video, you can mentally try to keep track of who the person is. But people's voices are relatively unique, and so you might be able to do that anyways. Once again, I did mention that sometimes I didn't ask people a question, so it'll go a little out of order when moments like that happens. Now, I have decided to split this into 2 episodes. Rather than having you sit down for an hour-and-a-half episode, you're going to get 2 40 to 45-minute episodes exploring this year of courage. Now, you might be thinking what I was thinking. When I sat down to edit this, I thought, for a whole year, 1 episode a week, I've been asking my guests, what is courage at the end? And so 10 minutes times, let's say I've done 50 episodes. That's quite a long bit of hours. Every week you've been hearing me ask people, what is courage? And I thought, it might be possible that my audience feels like they already have everything they need on courage. And myself, I feel like I might have gotten all the questions answered. So I put it together anyways. I trusted the process. And as I always do, once the episode is ready, I listened to it to make sure there wasn't anything I missed while going for a nice walk. And I was going through that walk, listening to it all put together. I was blown away by how it all came together. And so if you're thinking, Tom, I think I'm going to skip this episode, or Tom, I'm going to go through it because it's my weekly routine, but I've already listened to so many Year of Courage interviews. I'm telling you, this is so unique to hear it all put together just like this, and I know you will pull some gems from it. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome, and I hope you enjoy. And so without further ado, I'm going to step out of the way and allow you to experience these courage interviews. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sadia, and my name means lucky or fortunate. And I think that has been true throughout all of my life.
Hello, my name is Rasha, and what does my name mean to me? Well, it identifies who I am. It signifies who I am. It's actually shorter for Rashmi, which means the ray of light. So to be honest with you, I feel like I represent what my name means. It's an Indian name, and I do feel like I'm that ray of light because I have this hope and this inspiration within me to help enliven other people and to help empower their lives. And I feel like I am that beacon of light that can bring that hope and inspiration to other people.
Well, my name's Adam, and I have two surnames. So I've got Adam Sluggett, which is my passport name, I guess, or legal name, and then Adam Blake, which is my professional name. What does my name mean to me? Because Sluggett, actually, from what I understand, was my dad's name. My dad passed over the summer last year, so it's taken on more of an acute meaning recently. It's an old West Country name, so I think, from what I understand, it means keeper of the Slough Gate, which means keeper of pigs, which is from a kind of very personal point of view, I think just the name has taken on a lot more significance to me since his passing. So it's sort of like my brother changed his name to West. I had always considered changing mine from Sluggett to Blake, which is my professional name, and I still think I may do that. But what I may do is, rather than get rid of Sluggett completely, which I had considered, maybe move it into a middle name sort of territory. Just because I think, having it's just brought, I don't know, just since he's no longer here, just keeping that part of his side of the family alive a bit longer.
Yeah.
So that connection. So, and Adam's, I think, it was knowing that it was my mum and dad chose both my name Adam and my brother's name Corin from a Shakespeare play. It was with the shepherds, As You Like It, I believe.
Oh, wonderful.
No, yeah, Adam was a shepherd, and Corin was a shepherd, and Adam was the old manservant.
Hello, my name is Naila Mueed, and my name actually means one who succeeds and one who restores. And so what my name means to me is a legacy to walk in and to live up to. I think my parents did a great job of listening to the energy that I wanted to walk with in this life.
I'm Tress Glenn, and my name means that I'm very unique. And I normally point to my hair when I tell somebody my name because they're like, what, Tess? I only know like Tress, like tresses. So my name is closely associated with hair, but it makes me completely feel very unique.
Hi, my name's Anna Sambrooks. I never really thought about that before. Well, my name isn't my real name, for a start. So it's my stage name. So I guess for me, it always brings back memories of my first job, because that's when I had to choose what name I was going to have. And I sent in so many names and they kept coming back and telling me I couldn't have them. Someone else already had them. So I took my mum's maiden name, which she has never given up, even when she got married, which at the time was a strong thing to do. And I was sure I was going to change it further down the line. I never did. And so, so now it's family to me. So I have both sides of my family and my professional name and my actual name. So I have both parents.
Hello, my name is Raisa Kiwala, and what my name means to me is abundance in every area of my life.
Hi, my name is Ione, And the meaning of the name, according to what it is a violet-colored stone or a purple gem. My name, to me, doesn't really, I've never thought about it. I wouldn't say it has a meaning to me. It's just a series of sounds that were given to me to identify me. I'm not too attached to it. Other than that, I like that it's original and unique.
To me, courage is making your own decisions and being confident in your decisions. Or if you're not confident, still going with it and still being willing to live with the consequences of those decisions. And how to go about that, I think, is just taking decisions for yourself without too much consideration of the pressures that are outside.
Courage. Wow. It's a strong word. I think for me, courage is finding your voice. Courage is really going deep within and being able to stand up for yourself, for what you believe in, and to really being able to expressing that. I know we often see courage in different lights. A lot of time it's associated to being strong and not crying or fighting off something or being a big hero. But I think in today's day and age, or even just for myself, courage means standing up for myself, for who I am, being the real me, being authentic, and really finding my voice and not being afraid to share that voice with other people. That's what courage is to me.
Courage, I think, to me is always showing up, no matter what society or any other voices, be it your parents, be it society, be it your own voices in your own head, continuing to show up regardless of what they're saying, and doing the right thing, knowing your path and continuing to walk that path and being true to that. I think that takes a lot of courage, stepping in and doing the right thing when it's not the easiest thing to do, sticking up for people that, saying something. It's that whole kind of, if, seeing someone, if you're like seeing a kid getting bullied, or, if you see someone being attacked, or if you see someone in trouble, like the easiest thing to do is just to kind of walk away, not say a word, but like putting yourself in harm's way, when the sensible thing to do would probably not be putting yourself in harm's way. That takes a lot of courage. And going on to like talking about like continuing to show up when the voices or whatever, my aunt, my aunt and my uncle both killed themselves, and it was about 10 years apart. And my aunt, from the 10 years after my uncle killed himself, continued to show up. And though it was like incredibly hard for her, she'd always suffered from depression and stuff like that. And eventually it just all got too much, but the courage that it took for her to pick herself up, continue and, be present in people's lives, I think takes a massive amount of courage. Yeah. When everything about, everything in your head is screaming at you to kind of check out or, go and join her husband, the one person that she'd really truly loved. When you've got that sort of pressure in your own head, I think being able to kind of filter through that and continue to show up, because there are people around who still love you, and show up for them, that takes a lot of courage. Yeah. And also, Anna and I, going completely on a sidetrack, Anna and I worked, we mentored in a school down in South Central. And and those kids showing up every day and being an individual in a school like that. And there were kids that were individuals. They were, there was all the kids who were doing the films classes and stuff like that, and showing up to do that and wanting to learn about film or being present for that, and actually even beginning to entertain that as something that they could do, takes a lot of courage on their part, I think, because, again, they're taught not to dream, they're taught not to go after those, that's not territory for them. But to kind of be able to inspire someone to kind of go, no, that's okay, and to give that, to help them find that courage to kind of go, no, this is what I want to do, and I've got a voice and I've got something, and that takes, because they're taught to go and get a job as soon as they turn 16, or there's pressure to join gangs, and so to kind of turn their back on that lifestyle and forge their own way takes a massive amount of courage on their part.
What is courage? So courage, I like to think of the actual meaning of the word that, anchors what it actually is, because it's courage, right? And it's with heart. And I think that courage itself, when someone has courage, they have heart, they have, even if they don't have necessarily confidence, they have a determination, or they have a decision they've made to go after something, and there's a passion or energy that comes with it, that comes from your heart. So when you have courage, you have heart to do something or to participate in whatever it is, whether it's a relationship, a project, seeing yourself differently. I think it's with heart, so that's what courage is to me.
Courage to me, I think what comes to mind, a lot of times I think of people who are trans or drag, people who do drag, especially a lot of men who do drag, or who basically feel like they are in the wrong bodies and choose to live their truth. And that kind of resonates with me, maybe because I watch a lot of RuPaul Drag Race, but I'm just like, people who can actually live in their truth and walk outside their door and live their life like that, it takes a lot of courage. And I feel like I've learned from that, because no matter how big I think my problems are, or how small I may feel in this world, it's like there are people out there who are living with more difficulties than I am. And it takes a lot of courage just to get up each day, put on your clothes, and walk out the door and face the world. And I just think that courage is just being able to be authentically yourself in every moment you can and every day, and being uniquely who you are. And considering that I pursue acting, it takes a lot of courage to walk in those doors and to say, this is who I am. I'm happy and proud of the person I've become. And let me present my talent and my work to you. And I think a lot of people are not authentically themselves, especially in the business that I'm in. And I just feel like it takes a lot of courage to just walk out your door and feel like, hey world, Tress is here.
Courage for me is, the courage I admire in people is people who have the courage to be their true authentic selves with no compromise, just expressing themselves fully. Like, that to me is courageous. I think because we all have those things that we conform to, whether it's what's expected of us, society, family, friends, work. There's so many sort of societal rules and ways that we're told we should be. And I hate shoulds, and I don't do many shoulds, but I think there's that pressure. And I feel like the older I get, the more I don't want to have anything to do with that pressure, and I just want to find that joy in me and that self-expression. And I think being an actor as well, you spend so long, you have your headshots done, so it's like, oh, you can't change your hair, you can't change this, you can't do that, like you're stuck. Or you go on a show and then it's like you have to stay exactly the same. And I noticed that the first time I did, it's like a long, like years, my first 5 years in a show, I was like, wow, the only piece of my image that belongs to me is like, the only thing I can really change is like the color I paint my toenails. Like, and so I feel like that's part of it, like just claiming that identity.
Courage. I used to be really afraid of courage. I used to be really afraid of having to be courageous or brave, or I used to be very fearful. But what courage has really meant to me is trusting myself, following my intuition, and my connection to my creator, in that I don't need to living in my head and creating stories or what ifs or if this then that takes me away from taking action and being courageous. So I find that what courageous means to me is really trusting myself, my intuition, and then taking the action even though the fear pops up. Having the faith that, God has my back, and that I really rely on that and count on that. So it makes taking the action not as scary. And that step towards the action makes it kind of dissipate. And the closer I get towards it, the more it disappears.
It is the feeling of strength and willingness to take action or do something even though you feel challenged by it or are unsure of it. I think it's having strength to do something that doesn't come easy to you.
When I was in Ethiopia, I lived in the tiny little village, and it was in the middle of the mountains that you would never find it unless I took you there, even if I told you how to get there. Of course, there's no such thing as an address or anything out there. So the transportation there, it was just one bus that would come whenever it would come. And there's one windy pathway that goes through all the mountains. And that pathway was treacherous and extremely dangerous. And I almost flew off the mountain with the bus twice. And it gave me PTSD a little bit. Really, like when I got back here, it was terrible. But for me, it took courage just to get on that bus and to think about, okay, I'm going to do it at this time of day because I know that the driver is probably going to be the most awake and alert. And if I go really early in the morning, then I can just try and make myself sleep on the bus and not think about, am I going to die today on this mountain? And that was something that took a lot of courage for me to do. In a way that I feel like it didn't take me courage to move to Ethiopia, but it took me courage to do some of the daily things that were required of me. Yes.
Are you grateful that you did it?
Of course I am. I have a great adventure that I can always remember and I can always share with people.
A very basic example. I remember being at a costume fitting. I was, I went to this costume fitting for a gig, and I walked into the their offices, and this guy just followed me straight in. And I knew they were doing a bunch of fittings, and they assumed, and I assumed, that he was just there for a fitting, and he's kind of chatting to them, and quite quickly it becomes apparent that he's just followed me in. Quite quickly it was apparent he's like obviously very, very high on something, and he's trying to, I don't know, he's like, I may have been homeless or like from a halfway house that was just down the street or something, but it was like he was kind of quite amiable to begin with, but you could see that there was like a tension there as well, and they're trying, I kind of took a back seat because they were quite managing it quite well, and then as a guy you kind of you can, if you step in too soon, you can inflame a situation. So trying to keep a back seat, but also kind of being aware of what's going on. And then they'd begun to shepherd him towards the door, and then he then started kicking off. And then that's when I was like, because there was a office of women costume designers, and one of them was pregnant, and I was like, stepped in and was just like, no mate, you have to leave. And he was like, don't touch me. I was like, not. So stepping in and So that took, I guess, I don't want to say courage, but it just was like, for me, it was just the right thing to do.
I don't think there's any particular moment that stands out. My whole life has been one of courage, definitely. I am currently 44 years old. I just turned 44 last Sunday. So, and, you know, I came from humble beginnings, very humble beginnings. And when I was, I'm going to say 18, I moved out of my dad's house when I was 18, moved in with my mom. I hadn't lived with my mom since I was 7 years old. And when I moved out, I lived with my mom for 1 year. Then I said, okay, I'm going to go live on my own. And I've been living on my own since I was 19. And so every day has been a courageous step toward, what am I going to do with my life? How do I want my life to look? You know, I moved to California as a single mom with 2 kids. My youngest daughter was 2.5. I didn't know anyone in the Los Angeles area. You know, a lot of people thought that was very impulsive. It was courageous. You know, I knew my new life was here, you know, in the Los Angeles area. And I've been here since 2004. It's now 2018, 14 years. People thought I would move back, you know, to Seattle. And it's like, no, you know, so my whole life I've lived with courage. I've lived with my heart. You know, if it's on my heart, I'm going to move with that and take whatever steps are necessary to do that.
I don't know. I think those moments of courage, like I'd love to say I've like pulled a baby out of a burning building or something, you know, that'd be awesome, but I haven't. I think those moments of courage, I think they're the ones that you don't think, that your instinct takes over, that your gut reaction takes over. I had an incident. I was on a show years ago, and I was on the street with an old boss of mine, and there was a guy fighting with his girlfriend in the park, and I really had my eye on it because it was just getting very unpleasant. It looked like it was about to get physical, and he lifted his fist to hit her, and something in me, I didn't even think, I just confronted him instantly. And his response was to assume that the guy I was with was my partner, who wasn't, he was my boss, and to then threaten to attack him. So I kind of had that moment of like, I stepped in, I did what was right, and then I was like, I'm going to get fired. And I didn't, and it was fine. It was all fine. But I think things like that, I think the courageous moments are the ones where your instincts, your morals, like something in you that believes it's right just takes over. Because I didn't think about it. I don't know, courage is a weird thing, I think. There was no thought involved. There was no decision. It was, my body took over and just did what I thought was right. So I don't know, I guess that was courageous for me, because he wasn't the nicest of guys to confront.
I speak openly about depression and dealing with depression. So I think being very authentic and open and vulnerable and honest about that, I would say would be quite courageous. You know, I was worried about what people would think or what people would say. And in fact, doing that and sharing my experiences and that stuff has been a big benefit for a lot of people and helped a lot of people open up about struggles that they're going through. I think it's very easy for us to show, for social media, for example, show a one-sided portrayal of our life where everything is glossy and fantastic and lovely. And I just think it's important to have integrity and be honest about the things that are happening. When I have spoken openly about what's been going on, it's also because I don't like lying. I just think it's important. It feels better to be authentic and real. Also thinking about why I'm doing it, what's the benefit, and it's normally because I think this would help other people hearing me say these things. And it's not just, I don't just sort of speak about it in a way that's sort of me being upset or complaining. It's like, this is what I'm going through. I know it's going to pass. These are the ways that I've been dealing with it. This is what's helped. So I know that is going to be of benefit. It's something bigger than myself. What I can do with it is far greater than not doing it. I think that helps to be courageous when when your actions serve a greater purpose than yourself, it's a lot easier to be courageous, for sure.
Okay, so I have to share this story. It's about Tom Earl. And I don't think Tom Earl has ever heard this story.
Oh my goodness.
So in Tom's case, specifically, courage really lined up with integrity. And I think that's another friend of courage, like you were talking about. And it was a time when Tom and I were hanging out, and he was actually on a photo shoot for his new CD cover. And we were hanging out in St. Pete in Florida. It was wonderful. I don't know if you want to share this part because it might make the other person look less good, but basically, the photographer was randomly shooting different objects and playing around with different shots, and the photographer went to go take a picture of someone who was experiencing homelessness. Just because, and that person, the homeless person was sleeping, and Tom said, no, don't do that. And had a ton of integrity and a ton of courage, what I think looks like courage, because he didn't stop to think, am I going to be rejected by this photographer who's also my friend, or is that going to look bad, or am I going to cause conflict? He wasn't afraid of those barriers. He just did what was right, and I think that took a lot of courage. And that was something that was very inspiring to me, and one of the many things about Tom Earl that I will never forget. So cool way to see courage demonstrated very up close and personal.
You know, I have to tell you, I think one of my role models for me is my dad. He's a cancer patient, and no matter how many times he's been knocked down, he's just, he's still a fighter. And lucky for us, he's doing well, but he still works full time. He's never given up once. He's always stood there and worked hard to take care of his family. And I just feel like that really represents the true essence of courage. I mean, even through all the testing and everything he's been through, he's just always been so strong.
Is there anything you'd like to share with him?
Oh, with my dad? No, I just, I'm very grateful and very thankful to him, and that just as his daughter and as a family, just we're very proud of him. And I don't know sometimes if he really realizes that, but we from the outside do, and we really want him to make the best and enjoy his life.
Anna, my wife, because she's one of the most honest people I know, and that takes a lot of courage, to be honest. My dad was, I think in many respects, a very courageous person, in the fact that he never, he again just always showed up. He was a creative, he was a director and a writer, and he never, it's a fine line between courageous and stupidity. But it's, he just always believed that, his work was, he worked with kids. He was like, the youth theatre director. He was an inspired people. So he just, the courage it took to live his life, his truth, and regardless of kind of like what else happened, that's, he never was in it for the money. And that, he never was in it, there was a lot of failed relationships as a result. And in that respect, he was quite a courageous person. There was he had other demons and such, but in the fact that he always kind of held true to himself in the fact that he was a director, a creator, was, always championed the places that he lived by bringing art to the people. I think that was, and didn't really give a shit what people thought of him. That's quite courageous. I think that's quite courageous when you don't when other people's opinions cease to matter to you?
I feel like my mother's a good role model. I mean, she came of age in the 50s and the 60s, and she's seen a lot. And in order to get through America during those times, I mean, you have to step out on faith. You had to have a lot of courage to like pursue success, basically, when there were so many obstacles in her way, and just to make it on the other side and have this full life that she's lived. When I think back of all the different decades that she's seen, and just how this country's changed, how her life has changed, like all the opportunities that her kids have, and then she did an amazing job as a mother, and to see, I always think like what my mother's been through way more than I would ever go through. And I'm like, if she can get a master's degree coming from a child that grew up on a farm with her father was a sharecropper, and to have a master's degree, it's like amazing.
That's a good question. I don't have any particular people, but I could say I have everybody. I see people all around me, people that I interact with on a regular basis that show up with courage, people who take action, even though there's unknown. I'm moving forward. And I also see people who are frozen in fear and can't move forward and will accept and tolerate anything in their life, even if they feel they don't deserve this, or they feel like it's wrong. They're so willing to sit in that and stay frozen in that fear. But I also see people taking action, and that really inspires me. So I don't have any role models per se, but I recognize that, and I see that in people a lot. And I appreciate that when I recognize it in just everyday people who take action, even with the unknown, even with the fear.
My single mum, like raising me, I think parenting in general, I think is incredibly courageous. It's such a huge responsibility, a lot of work, a lot of effort. I think, for the enormity of how important that is as a job.
Greetings, Tom Earl again. I hope you enjoyed this part 1 interview with these courageous people. I'm going to give a special thanks to all of them. We give a shout out to their social media in part 2. So if you're wondering if right away you want to connect with them and let them know how much you appreciate their part 1 interviews, those are in the show notes, tomerl.com/courage. However, in part 2, they give all their social media plugs and etc. And so, as I mentioned, this is going to be a part 2 will be released next week, where you're going to hear the rest and the conclusion of their interviews. I hope you enjoyed this. I want to give 2 plugs. One is throughout 2019, I'm going to be doing Q&A episodes. And so I would love to invite you to submit any questions you have around personal development, business development, leadership, conflict mediation, social media management, digital marketing, anything like that, or anything you have a question about me personal, for my personal life. If you have any questions like that you want to submit that I can ask on a podcast episode, just head to tomerl.com/ask, A-S-K, tomerl.com/ask. If you've already submitted a question, feel free to submit more. I would love to answer questions throughout 2019. Last thing I want to mention is that if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I'm inviting you to make 2019 your strongest, most courageous, most awesome year yet. And if you're looking to do that in the area of business, if you're looking to bring a side hustle or a passion project or something you've been working on for a long time, if you want to take that to the next level while connecting with your audience, scaling your message, and generating an income, I'd love to be your coach and invite you to be a part of our group coaching business development process. You get 50% off your first month if you join by the end of 2018. You can find that tomerl.com/coach. My friends, come back next week to hear part 2 of these courageous interviews and hear how they conclude. As always, I'm wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.